There's 10, 15 minutes left on Saturday night. Newcastle have beaten Wolves 1-0. Steve Bruce makes a substitution and sends Matt Ritchie onto the pitch. Now, Matt Ritchie is sent on with instruction. There's going to be a change in formation, a change in personnel, affecting at least 3 or 4 different players. Now, listen, Matt Ritchie should have come on with a flip chart and a felt tip. There was that much information. What happens is John Joe Shelby takes a quick free kick. Newcastle are disorganised. Wolves break and Wolves score a goal.
Right.
Now, so Newcastle then subsequently draw the game 1-1. There's a little bit of an inquest on the pitch, and we noticed this as journalists, but it's not really the story. I haven't led my match report on it, put it that way. It only then becomes a big story when Steve Bruce comes out in the press subsequently in his post-match interview and blames Matt Ritchie for the concession of the goal, for not getting the instructions onto the pitch to the players. You sat there as a journalist thinking, wow, this is really chucking a senior player under the bus here. Steve Bruce then subsequently blames Martin Dubravka for not saving the goal, Jamal Lewis for not stopping the cross, and Joe Linton for missing the chance at their end. And it becomes the story, Steve Bruce blaming 4 of his players for this, for losing 2 points, which you're thinking, as a journalist, you're thinking, wow, this is a little bit reckless, this is dangerous. We weren't the only ones thinking that. The players in the dressing room were also thinking this. Matt Ritchie left the stadium and immediately started trying to telephone call Steve Bruce. He got through to him. He wanted to have it out with him there and then. Steve Bruce said, no, wait until training on Tuesday. Now, that's another issue, the fact that the players were given 48 hours off after the draw.
Yeah.
They turn up at training on Tuesday. They train as normal. Matt Ritchie's out on the training pitch, at which point Steve Agnew, the assistant manager, is dispatched to tell Matt Ritchie, the manager, Steve Bruce, will see you in his office now. Listen, I'll dumb down some of the language, but Ritchie turns around and says, no, I'm not talking to that coward ever again. This is relayed back to Steve, who I understand is angry. He then marches down on the training pitch and confronts Matt. There's a little bit, listen, punches weren't thrown, but there's a little bit of barging, there's a little bit of shoulder to shoulder, and I think it's Steve Bruce who was initiating this. They then have an exchange.
Steve Bruce was initiating it.
It was Steve Bruce who initiated the barging, is what I'm told. Matt Ritchie didn't respond physically, and this is witnessed by absolutely stunned teammates at the time. There's then an exchange between them. Steve is unhappy about the use of the word coward and says to Matt Ritchie, after all I've done for you. Ritchie responds with, you have done F all for me.
We get it, right?
So then repeated, and Steve Bruce says to him, what are you going to do? Go and tell Lee Charnley. That's meant to be an inference to Steve believing that some players either have or would go to the managing director expressing their unhappiness. So that chain of events then leads to a situation yesterday when I come in receipt of this information. I then put it to the club. The information is confirmed. And the club aren't happy. The club want to keep it out of the newspaper. They aren't happy at all, and they're blaming me. They think I'm a troublemaker. I'm out to derail the club on the eve of a big game. I'll say one thing here. That is absolute rubbish. If you get your own house in order, if that chain of events doesn't start with the substitution, with the criticism of the players, which then leads to the fallout in training, I'm just a journalist reporting what happens. You've got to get your own house in order as a football club. If the incident doesn't happen, it doesn't appear in the newspaper. And at the moment, Newcastle United's house is an absolute mess. Their problem is that they believe I am a negative journalist. I suppose they believe I'm negative because I tell the truth. Because I've long had an opinion of Steve Bruce not being the right man to manage the team, and I've always stood by that. And the more I've heard over the last 48 hours, the last 2 or 3 weeks, I'm certainly not the only person who thinks that. And the fact that there are people inside the dressing room who believe that. And listen, I'm not going to call for anyone to be sacked, but no. If Newcastle United, I don't see Simon's laughing, but if Newcastle United did change manager now, and there are several players in that dressing room who want that, I believe it would galvanise them and it would aid their chances of survival.